The drama begins with Do-yu trying on wedding dresses because her wedding is next week. However, we find out that her fiancé, Lang, isn't accompanying her because he's busy with an important task. However, the truth is that Lang is spending time with another woman, cheating on Do-yu's friend, Lee. When Lee sees a picture of Do-yu in the wedding dress, she decides to reveal the truth to her. She takes a picture of Lang sleeping and sends it to Do-yu, along with a message saying, "Your beloved is with me, what can you change?" Nothing. She also gives her the hotel name where they are staying. Angry, Do-yu decides to take revenge. She confronts Lang, slapping him, and tries to fight Lee, but Lang intervenes, saying, "You are poor, I will never marry you." Do-yu then throws her engagement ring at him and throws all his clothes out of the window. They are forced to leave the hotel wearing only their pajamas, and everyone laughs at them. Do-yu takes a picture of them in their pajamas. Later, she discovers that Lang has canceled the wedding and is planning to marry Lee. Do-yu decides to crash their wedding as revenge. When the guests arrive at the wedding, they are confused because the bride in the pictures looks different from the one present at the ceremony. This is because Lang couldn't find time to create a new design for the invitation or a new banner. His mother assures everyone not to worry, saying that Uncle Shin will arrive soon and take care of everything. When Shin finally arrives, we see that he is a handsome, successful businessman. As he enters, he accidentally bumps into Do-yu, who is still in her wedding dress. She notices his good looks and offers him money, asking him to pretend to be her husband in front of everyone. Shin initially refuses because the amount is too small, but Do-yu insists. He agrees to help her, unaware that she is marrying his nephew Lang. Before the wedding begins, Do-yu crashes it, announcing to the guests that Lang is a cheater who betrayed her and Lee a week before their wedding. She shows photos of them leaving the hotel in pajamas as proof, embarrassing them both. Lang's mother tries to remove Do-yu from the wedding, but Shin steps in to defend her, announcing that he will marry Do-yu right then and there. They marry before Lang and Lee can proceed with their wedding. During the ceremony, Do-yu realizes that Shin is actually Lang's uncle, someone who deserves her respect. To rub salt in the wound, they use the diamond rings originally intended for Lang and Lee's wedding, while the two of them end up with ordinary rings. Lang is shocked that his uncle married Do-yu. When he tries to talk to her, Do-yu dismisses him, and he can't respond because she is now his aunt by marriage. He reluctantly addresses her as auntie and apologizes. Out of frustration, he wants to hurt her, but holds back to stay in his uncle's good graces. Later, Shin and Do-yu leave the wedding together, and he tells her, "Come on, let's go home." Do-yu, however, manages to escape laughing. Meanwhile, Lee is crying to Lang's mother, feeling humiliated by the public shaming. We also find out that Lang's mother has sent a man to spy on Do-yu and Shin because she suspects their marriage is fake. The next day, Do-yu discovers that Lee has been promoted at work and made head designer of the company, while Do-yu is demoted to being Lee's assistant. Furious, Do-yu confronts the management, but they inform her that Lee has become the vice president and even won an award for her jewelry design, a design that Do-yu knows is actually hers. Do-yu confronts Lee, demanding her design back, but Lee taunts her, saying she has no proof and will always be her assistant, following her orders. Lee also hints that she knows Do-yu and Shin are not really married. When Lang arrives, Lee pretends that Do-yu slapped her, bursting into tears, and Lang believes her. Do-yu, however, plays a recording proving Lee's lies, leaving Lang ashamed. Do-yu tells them both, "You two are filthy," and leaves. Do-yu's friend advises her to ask Shin for help in proving that the design is hers, but Do-yu says she barely knows Shin and doesn't even have his phone number. However, she decides to file a complaint with the company board, determined to expose Lee's theft. The next day, Lang's mother sends security guards to stop Do-yu from entering the building, offering her money to stay silent. Do-yu demands more money, threatening to expose the pictures she has of Lang and Lee leaving the hotel. Enraged, Lang's mother throws water in her face, but one of Shin's men has been watching and calls Shin to inform him of what's happening. Shin rushes to the scene, assuming Do-yu is being mistreated, but is surprised to find that Do-yu is the one being aggressive. Nevertheless, he steps in, playing the gentleman and telling everyone that no one is allowed to yell at his wife. Shin forces Lee to apologize and even makes her pour water over her own head as punishment. Do-yu, pleased, thanks Shin for his help. Shin gives her his business card, telling her to call him anytime she needs assistance. Do-yu realizes from the card that Shin is wealthy, but before she can express her gratitude, she reminds him that their marriage is fake and manages to escape again. The following morning, Do-yu learns that the woman who stayed with her has moved out because Lee bought the apartment and forced her out. Do-yu confronts Lang, saying they had planned to buy the apartment after their wedding, but Lang now yells at her, telling her to never contact him again. Devastated, Do-yu breaks down crying in the street until her friend finds her. Her friend says to her, "Come and live with me," but Do-yu responds, "I have to take revenge and make them regret what they did to me." The next day, Lee is afraid to come to work, thinking Do-yu might attack her. But when she arrives at the office, she finds it clean and realizes that Do-yu did all of this. Do-yu even brought her favorite drink. At that moment, Do-yu says, "I've changed. I've let go of everything that happened between us, and I'm also ready to forget all that's been done." Langa is pleased with the apparent reconciliation, but as soon as he leaves, Do-yu slaps Lee and threatens her, demanding the return of the stolen design. They fight again. At that time, Langa is speaking with his mother and learns that Shin is about to join the company, and he realizes that he needs to get closer to him because there's no other way for him to become the head of the company instead of remaining the vice president. Lang suddenly hangs up the call when he sees Lee and Do-yu running after each other, and he gets startled. Then, both of them start crying, each saying, "She's the one who destroyed me." But this time, Shin arrives and sees Do-yu injured. Outraged, he fires Lee from the company and helps Do-yu recover. Do-yu, confused by Shin's continued kindness, asks why he's helping her so much. He admits that his family expects him to marry, and he proposes that they continue pretending to be married for 3 more days. In return, he will help her prove the design theft and get her promoted at work. Do-yu agrees, and together they organize a meeting to reveal the truth about the stolen design. Do-yu presents 3 designs, and Lee is unable to identify the original. This exposes her as a thief, and she is fired from the company, while Do-yu is promoted to head designer. As they leave the meeting, Shin reminds Do-yu of their deal. Do-yu asks for money to rent an apartment, but Shin suggests they live together instead. She refuses at first, but when he offers her $10,000 to attend a family dinner, she reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Langa's mother is plotting to destroy Do-yu at the family dinner, while Lee tries to get closer to Shin's mother by offering her an expensive gift. At the dinner, Shin warns Do-yu that if she makes a mistake, he'll cut her payment, but Do-yu reassures him not to worry. Then, she meets Lang and Lee, but leaves because Shin is talking to Lang. As Do-yu was walking away, Lee tries to mistreat her, but Do-yu pushes her away and knocks down the gift Lee was carrying. Lee says, "Do you know what you've just dropped? It's the gift for your mother-in-law. I don't know what she'll do to you when she finds out you threw it away." Then Do-yu introduces herself to Shin's mother, saying, "I'm Shin's wife." She adds, "Shin and I love each other, and that's how we got married." Shin confirms what she says is true. At that moment, Leah says, Do-yu was playing around with the gift. Shin's mother replies, "It's fine. Let her play with it however she likes. She's my son's wife." Then she embraces Do-yu. Shin's mother says, "Tell me if anyone bothers you, and I'll teach them manners." Do-yu points at Lee, and right in front of everyone, Lee and Lang are scolded and told to apologize. We then see Do-yu feeling very happy, and the family warmly welcomes her. Shin tells his mother, "Do-yu isn't after my money." His mother responds, "I trust the one you've chosen. Stay strong, and I want to see your children soon." When they leave, Do-yu is overjoyed because she hasn't done anything wrong. Shin thanks her, but Do-yu says, "Forgive me, dear, but I need the money we agreed upon." She takes the money, kisses him, and rents an apartment. While moving in her furniture, she sees Shin swimming and she playfully hits him with her bag. Shin tells her that he owns the house. Do-yu says, "I don't care about any of this, you need to leave the house." But Shin tells her that the rental agreement includes him staying in the house. Do-yu starts yelling, but when she sees that he's prepared a place for all her designs and a childhood picture of her, she becomes very happy and says, "I'll tolerate you for 3 months like we agreed, but after that, I don't want to see your face." Shortly after, she falls asleep from exhaustion. Shin covers her with a blanket and notices a moon-shaped birthmark on her neck, making him very happy. The next day, while she's happily going to work after getting promoted, she runs into Langa. He apologizes for what he did to her and says, "I didn't know Lee was a schemer who stole your design." He gives her the key to his house, saying, "Your name is written on the house, but live there." Do-yu declines the offer. Shin, who overheard the conversation, becomes very jealous. He comes to Do-yu with 36 keys, telling her, "Take anyone and live wherever you want." But Do-yu refuses and walks away. Shin is furious and can't sleep all night, worried that she might make up with Lang. As a result, he decides to transfer Lang to another department and take over managing the company himself. When Do-yu arrives at work and learns that Shin is now the boss, she is shocked because she doesn't want people to know that he is her husband. But Shin says the staff is invited to a meal to celebrate Do-yu's promotion. Do-yu tries to avoid him, but he sticks close to her. Later, Do-yu tells Shin, "Don't tell anyone about our relationship." Meanwhile, the employees are suspicious of Do-yu and Shin. A little while later, Do-yu overhears two of the employees gossiping, saying that she's obsessed with money and doesn't care about anything else. They claim she tried to win over Langa, but when that failed, she's now after Shin. They even say Lee is 1,000 times better than her. Do-yu yells at them, and that's when Shin arrives. The women tell him, "Do-yu is taking advantage of you, watch out!" But Shin responds, "That's what I want, for her to take advantage of me." He then threatens the women, saying, "Either quit your jobs or I'll fire you myself." Afterwards, Shin chases after Do-yu, wanting to apologize, but she's angry about what happened. On the other hand, Lee is yelling at Lang, saying, "It's not right for you to be transferred, you should talk to your uncle." But Langa tells her, "You have no place in my life anymore. Don't interfere again." He also admits, "I regret leaving Do-yu and marrying someone like you." Lee becomes furious and decides to take revenge on Do-yu. She sneaks into Do-yu's office and steals the new design she had created. The next day, Do-yu is surprised to see a small party held in her honor to celebrate the launch of her new jewelry line. It was all arranged by Shin. He also gives her flowers and hands her the first design she ever made, keeping it as a memory. The staff all watch Do-yu and Shin. Suddenly, the management arrives and accuses Do-yu of stealing the design from a competitor, saying that another company released the same jewelry. They accuse Do-yu of stealing the design. She tells Shin that she didn't do it and says they need more time to prove the design wasn't stolen. Shin tells her, "I'll stand by you no matter what." Do-yu heads to the village where she grew up, searching for her original design, but she can't find it. Shin asks her about her childhood, and Do-yu explains, "My family died when I was young. My grandmother raised me. When I went to school, someone sponsored my education. He encouraged me to study all the way through university. I owe him a great debt, and I hope to meet him one day to thank him." She then adds, "Come, let me introduce you to my childhood friend." Shin is happy, but when he sees how close they are and that they're laughing together, he becomes jealous and distances himself. We learn that her childhood friend's name is Wang. When Wang asks who Shin is, Do-yu replies, "He's my friend." Wang then tells her that he has the book of designs she made. He challenges her, saying, "I'll give it to you on one condition. You have to become my love." Shin becomes anxious and follows Do-yu all day, trying to prevent her from getting close to anyone else. Wang tries to give Do-yu water in a romantic gesture, but Shin grabs the water and drinks it, saying, "Be careful, Do-yu is my wife." Then a little boy runs up to Wang, calling him Dad. Shin is embarrassed when he realizes Wang is married with a child. It was all just a joke from Wang. Wang then says to Shin, "Take care of Do-yu. If I ever hear that you upset her, I'll come after you. Be careful." Do-yu retrieves the design book and shows Shin a tree nearby, saying, "This tree is the most important thing in my life because it has witnessed my happiest and saddest days." Shin embraces her and says, "I want to be like this tree, so that you'll love me too." But she doesn't take his words seriously because he's drunk. She takes him home, puts him to bed, and sleeps on the couch. Later, Shin wakes up and looks at the certificates she keeps with her. We flash back to years earlier, when we find out that Shin was the one who sponsored Do-yu's education. But at the time, he was living abroad in China. She used to send him letters, telling him about all the achievements she made and thanking him. She would say, "The day will come when we finally meet." We return to the present time where Shin is looking at Do-yu and says, "Don't be afraid, I will never leave you, and I will always love you." On the other hand, we see that Lee has given the gold design to another company, and she is speaking to a relative of hers, making a new plan to take revenge on Do-yu. The next day, Shin holds a press conference, and Do-yu tells everyone that she is the original creator of the design. She shows the design she made 10 years ago, saying that it won a famous award, and tells them to search for the award's name on the internet. but one of the journalists stands up and says that the award she mentioned doesn't have a website. We find out that Lee hacked the website and deleted all the information. The press accuses Du-yu of lying, and one of the journalists shows a picture, accusing her of having a relationship with Shin. He claims that's why Shin allowed her to work in the company despite her young age. Shin tells the journalist, "Watch your mouth and speak respectfully. The person you're talking to is my wife." The press is shocked. At this moment, Shin accuses the press of intruding into personal matters and shows a journal from 10 years ago proving that Du-yu won the award. He then tells the journalist, "I know you are related to Lee." The journalist feels embarrassed and leaves. Shin then tells the press to give Du-yu a chance because she is talented and trustworthy. Du-yu walks out feeling shy and Shin feels anxious. His assistant tells him, "You should confess your love to Du-yu instead of staying silent." At this point, Du-yu's friend sees the news and goes to confront her, asking, "As your friend, are you hiding from me that you and Shin are married?" To calm her down, Du-yu brings her food and explains everything that happened, saying that the marriage is fake. Her friend responds, "You're a liar. I know you're in love with him." Du-yu denies it, saying, "It's impossible for me to love him." At that moment, she receives a message from Shin asking to meet the next day. Du-yu is happy and her friend asks, "How can you be happy if you say you're not in love?" Meanwhile, Langa confronts Lee after discovering that she stole Du-yu's design again. He tells her, "You're a liar, and I know you didn't marry me out of love. You married me for money, and I won't live with someone like you. Get out of my house and prepare for a divorce." Lee becomes furious and decides to take revenge on him as well. The next day, we see Shin dressed stylishly, carrying flowers and preparing to kneel to confess his love to Du-yu. But we find out that all of this is a rehearsal, prepared by his assistant to help him stay composed when he meets Du-yu. Du-yu also prepares to meet Shin, dressing up nicely. But before she leaves, Langa calls her, apologizing for everything Lee has done. He also tells her that he is divorcing Lee and still loves her, asking her to come back to him. Du-yu replies, "Don't ever contact me again." As she walks down the street, we see that a man is watching her. Suddenly, the man speeds toward her with a car, intending to hit her, but Lang saves her, getting hit by the car instead. He is rushed to the hospital, where his mother and Lee arrive. The doctor says his condition is critical and that he is in a coma. Lee angrily blames Du-yu for everything and tries to slap her, but Shin stops her and takes Du-yu outside. While they are on the road, Du-yu tells Shin that the accident was planned. At the same time, Shin's assistant investigates and finds out that the car was illegal. They realize they need time to gather evidence. Shin reassures Du-yu, saying, "Don't worry, I will catch the person responsible." Meanwhile, Lee tells her mother-in-law that Du-yu tried to kill her son to get revenge for what he did to her. Lee claims she was the last person to speak to him before he went into the meeting. Langa's mother believes Lee and decides to take revenge on Du-yu. We know that Lee is behind everything. When she is left alone at the hospital, she talks to the driver and says, "Take your money, and I don't want to see you in this country again." When he asks for her name, she replies, "Call me Du-yu." The next day, Shin becomes worried about Du-yu and hires 4 bodyguards to protect her, staying by her side the entire day. Suddenly, Langa's mother calls him, saying that Langa has woken up. They go to the hospital, but when they enter the room, Langa is still unconscious. At that moment, Langa's mother pulls out a knife, intending to kill Du-yu, accusing her of causing her son's condition. Du-yu pleads, "I didn't do anything," but then the police arrive, informing them that they caught the driver responsible. The driver claims that someone named Du-yu ordered him to carry out the attack. Du-yu is shocked and tells the police, "I didn't do anything." At that moment, Langa's mother lunges at Du-yu with the knife, attempting to stab her, but Shin intervenes and takes the stab wound himself. Just then, Langa wakes up and says, "Du-yu did nothing wrong," but the police don't listen and arrest Du-yu anyway. We then see Lee rejoicing over everything that has happened. She tells Langa, "I did all of this for you, and you were wrong to throw yourself in front of that car." She adds, "The best part is the driver said his name was Du-yu, so when they catch him, he will tell them someone named Du-yu ordered him." But unexpectedly, the police, along with Du-yu and Shin, arrive and arrest Leah. It turns out they recorded everything she said. Langa, now fully awake, testifies, "I was a witness. I heard everything you said." Everyone is relieved and happy as Lee is finally arrested. Du-yu wants to check on Langa's condition, but Shin tells her to leave him to rest. When they get home, Do-yu treats Shin's hand wound, thanking him. Shin responds, "I will always protect you." The next day at the company, the management treats Do-yu like a VIP, saying, "Your command is law." Do-yu is confused and says, "I want you to treat me like everyone else because I am also part of the management." Frustrated, she storms out. The management wonders, "How can we treat you normally when you are the wife of the president of the entire company?" Do-yu starts feeling depressed because everyone is treating her so well, but she isn't used to this. Eventually, Shin arrives and says, "I want to talk to you." However, Do-yu tries to run away from him. Shin catches her and says, "I have loved you since the day we got married until now." He asks her to give him a chance and suggests they go on 3 dates before she decides whether she wants to be with him or not. Do-yu responds, "I'll think about it," and Shin is overjoyed. Meanwhile, Lange confronts Lee, saying, "You should be grateful to me for the rest of your life because I got you out of prison." Lange demands she quickly sign the divorce papers. Lange's mother then slaps Lee, blaming her for everything that happened to her son. She tells Lee to leave and that she never wants to see her again. However, Lee tries to bargain, saying, "If you help me stop Lange from divorcing me, I will help him become the president of the company." Lange's mother is pleased and accepts the offer. The next day, Shin prepares for their first date with the help of his assistant. He invites Do-yu to a fancy French restaurant, arranging for a woman to play music for them, but Do-yu doesn't enjoy any of it. Sensing his failure, Shin admits, "Honestly, I love you. Next time, I'll do whatever it takes to make you happy." Meanwhile, Lee is seen taking a picture, clearly planning something new. The following day, Do-yu finds out that management has barred her from entering the new design competition because of the previous accusation that she stole the gold design. They apologize, saying the issue is not yet resolved. Do-yu becomes upset and Lang arrives, carrying the designs that Lee had stolen. He also says, "No matter how much my uncle gets upset, don't forget that I'm always here for you and that I still want you." Furious, Do-yu tells him to leave. Later, Do-yu meets Shin, who tells her to get ready for their second date. She agrees, and he takes her to a place where rare items are sold. At first, Do-yu gets angry, but when she realizes they're selling gold, she decides to stay. While standing around, a group of women from Shin's family approach her, gossiping behind her back. One of them says, "I know you're from a poor village trying to buy one of these necklaces." Another adds, "Be careful. Shin once loved another woman before you and he wanted to marry her, so don't think he'll stay with you forever." Do-yu doesn't stay silent though, and insults them back until one of them is almost in shock. Then she and Shin go into the auction, with the women sitting behind them. One of the women loudly tells the crowd that Do-yu is poor and can't afford anything, just as a necklace Do-yu designed is auctioned for $5,000. The woman scoffs, saying, "Who would pay $5,000 for this necklace?" To everyone's surprise, the price of the necklace rises dramatically, and Shin buys it for $10 million. The entire crowd is shocked because the necklace isn't worth that much. Shin takes the necklace and gives it to Do-yu as a gift, saying, "Even though she came from a poor village, she creates exquisite designs." The crowd applauds, including the jealous woman. As they leave, Do-yu angrily confronts Shin, shouting, "You wasted all that money. All I feel now is that I'm famous just for being your wife." But Shin explains that he did it to support her and make her design famous so she could enter the competition she wanted. He reassures her, "I didn't waste anything. That money will help a poor girl continue her education." Do-yu is touched and smiles. Then Do-yu notices a crescent-shaped mark on Shin's hand and asks what it is. Shin replies, "This mark reminds me of someone important to me." Do-yu jokes, "Don't tell me it's your old lover," but Shin doesn't respond. When they return home, Do-yu recalls what one of the women said about the crescent mark and remembers seeing a similar mark on someone's neck. Feeling unsettled, she prepares for bed, but then notices a gift and a letter from Shin, inviting her to meet him the next day at a hotel for their final date. The next day, Shin arrives early at the hotel, preparing a cake and ring to propose to Do-yu. His assistant comes in to check on him, but is shocked when he sees Shin's ex-girlfriend, Jeannie, arrive, dressed exactly like Do-yu. Jeannie runs into Shin's arms, saying, "I missed you so much." Just then, Do-yu walks in, witnessing the scene. Jeannie confidently introduces herself, saying, "I'm Jeannie, Shin's first love. I was away traveling, but now I'm back. Shin and I are meant to be married, and I know your marriage is fake. I also know you're just a poor girl from a village. Don't think Shin would ever truly love someone like you." She offers Do-you money, saying, "Take this and disappear. I don't want to see your face again," showing the crescent moon mark on her hand, saying, "Shin and I made this mark when we were in love." Shin tries to stop Do-you, but to his shock, he instinctively pulls Jeannie closer. Hurt and furious, Do-you storms out. Shin tries to call her later, but finds her phone switched off. Devastated, he sits alone in despair. Meanwhile, Do-you packs all her belongings and heads back to the village she grew up in. While on the road, she calls her friend, telling her, "I must have been crazy to trust another man again, especially Shin. All I want to do now is disappear and forget about him and his whole family." In a twist, Do-yu's driver, whose name is also Shin, she then receives a call from Shin's assistant, lying to him saying that Shin has been in a terrible accident and is in the hospital. The assistant hopes this will bring her back. When Do-you arrives at the hospital, the doctor tells her that Shin's life is in danger and that she should stay by his side. Reluctantly, Do-you agrees. As she sits by his bedside, she jokes, "You'd better wake up or I'll find a richer, more handsome man and marry him instead." Just then, Shin wakes up pleading, "Please don't leave me." Do-you teases, "So you're fine already, huh?" Shin responds, "It's your love that healed me. Nothing else could." As Shin realizes that Do-you stayed with him, he starts planning his next move to win her back. When mealtime comes, he tells her, "I can't eat without you feeding me, my love." Do-you, irritated, responds, "Let Jeannie feed you." Shin tries to explain, "Jeannie's mentally unstable. When I hugged her, it was to stop her from hurting you." Do-you remains skeptical, replying, "I don't believe you." Shin begs, "Please don't leave me." But Do-you snaps back, "How did your hand suddenly heal so quickly, liar?" As Shin tries to follow her, the lights suddenly go out and Shin seems to stumble. A heavy object almost falls on him, but Do-you catches it just in time. This reminds her of a moment from their past. In a flashback, we see a young Do-you saving Shin in a hospital when they were kids. She had drawn a similar crescent moon on his hand, telling him, "I'll always be by your side." Shin had then promised, "When we grow up, I'll marry you." Back in the present, Shin is overjoyed that Do-you remembers. He explains, "I got this crescent moon mark so I'd never forget you. I've loved you ever since." Do-you, still hurt, asks, "Why didn't you look for me all this time?" We then see that Shin had tried to find her when he returned from his travels. He had even planned to tell her that he was the one who had given her the scholarship. However, when he arrived at her training center, he saw her with Lang and assumed they were in love, which made him decide to distance himself from her. We return to the present time and Shin still hasn't told Do-you that he was looking for her. When she notices his silence, she says, "Promise me again that you will marry me." Meanwhile, we see that Lee has spoken to Jeannie, planning for her to get back together with Shin and break up Do-you. Lee reassures Jeannie, telling her not to worry and that she has a plan for her to marry Shin. The next day, news spreads that Shin and Do-yu's marriage is fake and that Shin is still involved with his ex, Jeannie. Additionally, Shin's company's stock has dropped, causing a loss of 1.5 million, prompting a family meeting. During the meeting, we see Lang's mother, who is pleased, saying that Shin is at home happy, but then Jeannie arrives, demanding, "Come out, Shin, let's get married." Shin, however, refuses, stating, "I can't marry you because I love Do-you." Jeannie breaks down in tears, and Do-you, feeling pity, tries to comfort her. Jeannie then demands that Lee be brought to her. Shin quickly realizes that Lee has been behind everything. When the 3 days Shin had to recover the money are up, a meeting is held, and Langa and his mother confidently attend, believing Langa will become CEO. However, they are shocked when they learn that Lee has confessed the truth to Shin and Do-you, revealing that she and Langa's mother conspired to make the company lose 1.5 million in order to bring Shin down and make Langa the CEO. Langa's mother and Lee begin to argue, but Lee admits, "We're both devils. Come on, let's go to jail together." At that moment, the police arrive and arrest both Langa's mother and Lee, and Langa is removed from the company. Afterward, Do-you congratulates Shin on becoming CEO. When everything is finally settled, Do-you participates in the design competition and wins first place. In her speech, she shares her inspiration, saying, "A girl saved a boy lost in darkness. I want to say that I'm still in love with that boy." In front of everyone, she proposes to Shin with a ring, and the crowd erupts in cheers and celebration.